וכי נפשי אס השם. We are now at Tractate Shabbat, page 80a. It's a special feeling for taking here on the eve of 10 of Tevet, Motzei Shabbat, from Yerushalayim. It's a very special feeling, and it's very interesting to see that the end of this daf dealing indirectly with Yerushalayim, hopefully rebuilt soon. The daf of today dealing with not only hotza'ah, carrying from one reshut to another, also speaking about ktiva, writing, and then the second part of the daf, which is pei amud bet, have a little more in regard to halachot, not only with carrying, but also in the manner of other type of halachot, such as memachek, kotev, and other Hilchot Shabbat, and we also have Agadata, some type of story as part of the shiur today. So pei, Tana, שתי אותיות בדיו ושתי אותיות בקולמוס, שתי אותיות בקלמרים. Someone on Shabbat writes שתי אותיות, 2 letters. So there is if you take a dry ink and you write it down, or you use a kolmus. Kolmus is that type of ink that used to write a scroll. So here they said shte otiyot, the 2 letters in the cassette, the one that the scribe used. So he is basically liable for melechet hotzah, and we explained that the minute you carry from one domain to another, which is from the private domain to public domain, so right away he's liable. The Kesef Mishna in Hilchot Shabbat, chapter 18, have a lot to say about it. He said that even Rashi holds that that's the way they make it, but he said the chances to write 2 otiyot, 2 letters, it's very little. But the chidush here, the beauty here is that the chiyuv, the liability of carrying, apply regardless. The Yerushalmi hold that only physically he wrote 2 otiyot, 2 letters, otherwise it's not the same obligation. So now it's a question that left with an answer, and the question that Rabbi asks is as follows: By Rabba, ot achat b'dio, ot achat b'kulmus, ot achat b'kalmarim, mahu. If someone used a dry ink and wrote 1 letter, and then he used the other, the special pen that he used for a scribe, and in other words, he uses 3 different pens, 3 different entities to write 3 different letters. So the question is, in order to make a shi'ur, which is the amount, the minimum amount for dio, you need to have these 2 letters. So can you combine them? So the question is that something that you combine them together, and you said since it's combined, so he is obligated, or you said that he is exempt since it was 3 different entities used to write those letters? And the Gemara remained with the question mark, which is Teiku, Tishvi, Teretz, Kushiyot, Ve'ibayot, which means it's unsolved question. Now, deriving from that, we have 2 different instructions in conjunction to carry ink on Shabbat. First one, Amar Rava, Hotzi shte otiyot uktaban kshehu me'alech. I'm not sure if we remember our study long ago, but at the very early part of the Masechet Shabbat, if you recall, if I'm not mistaken, page 8 has to be in that neighborhood, either 8 or, I think it's 8, but anyway, maybe not. But in that page, there is an issue of someone throwing something from one domain to another. Here we're speaking about someone who's not sitting around the table and just writing down something. Here we're speaking about a situation that someone, while he was walking, he's in a public domain, and while walking he wrote it. So do you hold him liable the same as just someone who's sitting and writing or not? So they said, GEMARA said, Chayav ktivatan zohi hanachatan. So that's a very interesting chidush. Why it's chidush? Because what happened here, Rashi tells us that someone carried this ink from one domain to another. It's true, but since he doesn't put it down in the second domain, and he himself did not stand there to relax, so the writing of two letters happened while he was walking from one domain to another. So the beauty of that is that you may say, since it wasn't stability in the sense of writing, you may not obligate him as a regular circumstance, but here they say that he is also obligated for carrying him, because the essence of using this ink is writing this ink on a piece of paper, and that's what's basically count. Usually we count only when it's a full hanacha, full putting it, but here the big chidush is that the Rashi said that since it was the process took place and something that is unerasable, so it's nothing to discuss. Now the Ritva go to the next step. The Ritva said the question of writing it's unquestioned. The only question is if it's a second liability for bringing a sin offering for what? For carrying. So in other words, he holds that it's a two different liability. One is just the idea of writing, which is melechet ktiva, and the second step is melechet hotza'ah. So that's the Ritva here. Second one, v'amar Rava, hotzi ot achat uktava, v'chazar v'hotzi ot achat uktava. So in other words, he is in the public domain. He's writing one letter, so basically he's already carried from one domain to another, and he did one thing. And then he pulled out separately an ink and wrote in a different time. So Rashi said that even it was ha'elem echad if it was in one time, but the chidush here that the two pieces chatzai shi'ur, that he did something half a way through each and every time, you cannot combine them and say that it's considering as one. And Rava elaborated and he said, "My tama, what's the reason that you not combined it?" So he said, "Beidna de apka lebatraita," when he was about to write the second letter, "Chaser le shiura de kamaita." So it was less ink at the first stage, that slowly and surely it was dried out. And because it's less ink than it was before he used that special pen for writing, so you cannot combine these two chatzai shiur, these separate pieces, as one shiur. So again, we talk about two chatzai shiur that you cannot combine them both, and that's the in order to consider it as a full melacha, you need to have the full process totally. So now we want to elaborate on chatzai shiur. I assume that you remember we discussed, for example, in Hilchot Yom Kippur, in eating, doing the different public fast day, etc. If it's what is the minimum amount, and if we can combine. Here we ask a situation that you carry a small amount, and can you combine it? ואמר רבא, הוציא חצי גרוגרת אחת. You take a very small little dry bark of food, והניחה, and he put it in a public domain, וחזר והוציא חצי גרוגרת אחרת. So now after he did it, and it was a very small amount, he returned and he took another one, and it's even, he did it in one unwanted and forgettable, ha'elem echad, one time. והניחה, הראשונה נעשתה כמי שקלטה. So we considering it like a dog passed by in a public domain and swallow it, או שנשרפה, or it was burned before he landed, before he put it down. So you cannot combine it, upatu. So since the dry fig, gogeret, that's the minimum amount, you don't have that amount in each of those melachot, so you cannot combine the both. Ve'amai. If he does that in one time, so why you say that he's not obligated? So they said ha mancha, because if you look, you may see one of them, it's still staying in a public domain when he's about to pull out and bring the second one, and so it should be a combination of both. That's what Rava meant. ואם קדם והגביע ראשונה קודם הנחת שנייה. If he lifted up the half of grogeret from the spot that he pulled it out, and before he did the second one. נעשית ראשונה כמי שנקלטה או שנשרפה. So the first one, it's like a dog passed by and eat it, or it's a burn. So it's not considering, if you remember when we talk nezikin, we talk about kocho. It's come from his power. It's not considering his strength. So therefore the second one cannot combine with the first one. And they said upatu. So Rashi explained, and he said because at the time that he pulled out the half of the shiur, the second one, it's already annulled the first one. So it was like, again, two chatzai shiurim, two separate small pieces, and therefore he is exempt from one to another. ואמר רבא, הוציא חצי גרוגרת והניחה, וחזר והוציא חצי גרוגרת והעבירה. So he pulled out again half of dry fig, and he put it in a public domain, and he did it again. And what happened is, והעבירה דרך עליה, meaning even that he's not put it down in a public domain, the second one, he's still carrying it, chayav. Here, we ask a question, how come? Ve'amai, halonach, he didn't put it down, so why you ask him to bring the offering? So they said, kegon she'virat toch shlosha. We have a concept in Tractate Eruvin that called lavud, that if you have from the ground third by third hand cubes, so you can combine it and you obligated it. So we basically say that 3 by 3, it's considering as satum, it's considering it's one block. So since he took one spot and put it down, and then you have the second one, we can combine in this sense. So it's Vamarava, even that chefetz, that part, toch shlosha, if it is close to 3 hand cube from the ground, לרבנן, according to the sages, צריך הנחה על גבי משהו. He needs to do hanacha, he needs to put it down on something until it's settled in one place. So if that's the case, so it's basically contradicted to what Rava said earlier, because what Rava tells us earlier, that it's enough if he passed by that area in the 3 hand cubits, and here he said no. So they said, Lokashia kan bezorek, kan b'ma'avir. It's not a question. The last memra of Rava speaks about someone who's throwing it. So he's throwing from one domain to another. So that's one situation. So it's not considering munach, relaxed on the ground, until it's really physically on the ground. Kan b'ma'avir, here is just by carrying. So since he's in his hand that it's close to the ground, less than 3 hand cubits, it's considering like it's already attached and it's obligated. As we said, if you remember in page 8, we talk about separate obligation just by throwing it. Tanu Rabbanan, הוציא חצי גרוגרת והוציא חצי גרוגרת בהלם אחד. If he did 2 times in half a dry fig, and chayav, he is liable for sin offering. בשתי העלמות פטור, but if it was 2 separate times, it's exempt. רבי יוסי אומר, רבי יוסי disagree, he said, בהלם אחד, לרשות אחד, חייב, if he did 1 time in one domain, meaning from a private domain to public domain, he is obligated for a sin offering. However, לשתי רשויות, which means it was a 2 separate public domain. So even though he did it one time, patur. Why? Because they said it's a concept we learned several times, that those entities can be separate. It's like considering two-time unwitting action, two shgagot, and therefore you cannot liable him, you cannot obligate him from bringing a sin offering. The Tosfot here, Be'elem, and also the Rashbam have a lot to say. But anyway, let's continue. Said Amar Rava vehu sheyesh chiyuv chatat benehem, which means the word of what Rabbi Yossi said apply only if it was a private domain that separated between two public domains. So since he carried from one place to another, so in between it's unintentional, so you need to bring a sin offering. But only in this type of situation we can separate a public domain. Aval Carmelit, lo, but if it was a Carmelit, which is a place that is not considering a private domain from the Torah, so it's not considering as two separate entities. And Rabbi Yossi holds that if he takes Hefer Grugeret from one to another, he is already liable for bringing a sin offering. In other words, the minute you have the Carmelit, that's a different story. Second opinion, Abaye Amar, afilu Carmelit, even if it's Carmelit, it's considering a two separate entities. So in other words, if you take Hef Gugeret there, he is exempt from offering, according to Rabbi Yossi. However, Aval Pisla lo. But if it's a wood piece that filled up all this part in the public domain, so it's not considering the two separate entities. And Rabbi Yossi holds that if he carries half a grogeret to a public domain from the side, but it's a pisla, which is that's the piece of wood, and then he did it second time. If he did it one time, like Ibehelem Echad, so you can combine it, and he is as the sin offering. And it is important to say that it's in a 10 hands cubit, and it's more than 4 and 4 hand cubits. So in other words, it's a large side. And the third opinion, Rava Amar afilu pisla. Rava said that if you have two public domain that's separated by this piece of wood that filled up the in-between public domain, we right away considering that two separate domains. So if you carry half a grogeret from one and half a grogeret from the other, even it was be'elem echad one time, he is exempt from bringing an offering. That's according to Rabbi Yossi. That's what Rabbi said, that pisla by itself, it's not that have 4 and 4 hand cubit. It's considering like Carmelit, and since you're considering Carmelit, so even in that size, it's maybe Mekom 2, but it's considering a separate domain. So as soon as a separate domain, we hold it as a separate entity. Maharsha much elaborate on that, so I invite you to go and read the Maharsha at length. And now the GEMARA wants to explain that, and he said, "Ve'azla Rava letameh." Rava go by his explanation. He said, "Amar Rava Reshut Shabbat Reshut Gitin Dameh." There's a famous GEMARA in Gitin 77 that speaks about someone who throw the get in some type of yard. In other words, she is living in a separate entities. It's like in the back of his yard, and he throw the get. So there's a question: is that considering full actions, full transactions between two, and consider her to be already acceptance of that get? So they said that if it's run around in that piece of wood in the yard, it's not considered full transactions, and therefore she's not recognized as a divorce. So in that sense, we juxtapose this GEMARA in Gittin to higher, and we said the same thing that Rashi have a very beautiful chart here. He said, "L'inyan Gittin pisla reshut lenafshahu," which means because it's like a Carmelit, it's like a separate entities, and therefore from one domain to another, it's not. ואוכל הטעם שהשאילה מקום בחצרו, that he let her use certain part of his yard, אחד מקום מושל אינשי, תראה מקומות לא מושל אינשי, so two entities a person cannot be in charge, and therefore it's not considered. So he juxtaposed to us, and we said, in that sense, you cannot put him under liability in that peace line, that situation. Now we'll go back to the Mishnah. Mishnah said, k'chol כדי לכחול עין אחת. In other words, they put one eye, this beauty of making it one of those cosmetic beautification for ladies, in order to make one, even just around one eye. So the Gemara asks, Hain chad halo kachle. Women, if they do that, they do it for both eyes, right? They don't do it just for one. So why, how come you tell me here that that it's already under obligations, it's not completion? Amar Ravuna, sheken tznuot kochalot ayin achad bilvad. He said, the truth is that modest women, when they go to the public domain, they use only one spot of eyes, and therefore they do it only in one eye, that it's appearing public, that people can see it, and not both. The Meiri said, since we have the assumption that most of the ladies are modest, so that's the way we rules. But it's important to know that we do not derive from that the law of modesty, or how, number one, we are in a different time context. Number two, we talk about certain restrictions that they put in nowadays, that it's in many ways different than those days. So, but just to get the key point is that the body has to be covered properly as a part of the law of modesty. And the second one is that even there are certain community that they have an extra stringencies. Since she is a part of community, she have to go by the way that people dress in that community and go extra mile. Meiti veRabbi Shimon ben Azar omer k'chol. He said if someone take k'chol, which means that they use that sense for certain purposes, such as im lerfuah, if they use it for the eye, to heal eyes, כדי לכחול עין אחת, so then it's enough for one eye. If a person has some, God forbid, a sickness in one eye, so you need to use just for one eye. אם לקשט שתי עיניים, if you talk about beauty, let's separate. If it's speak about healing, can be one. Beauty has to be two. Targema, so now it's basically the opposite than what we said earlier. Earlier we said it's enough one. So Targema, so Hillel elaborate, and he said, Targema Hillel bered Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, ki Tanyahu be'eraniyot. So he said, here we speak about people who live in the rural versus in the cities. So he said, since those who live in villages and suburban area, so it's not too much vanity and going around and need all of that, and their day-by-day custom is not to cover their faces when they are out of their homes, versus other places that it's a very crowdy, and it's like they use the term cities. So in conclusion, it's really depend upon the minhag makom, the custom of that place. That's the Rambam Hilchot Shabbat chapter 18. You go by minhag makom, and therefore whatever the minhag makom there, that's the way you do it. Sha'ava כדי ליתן על פי נקב קטן. So this is, by the way, in parentheses, because the question if that's the right location, or there are those who say that it's different location. For example, the Bach, he just erased that part from the GEMARA, but there's others that say that it has to be relocated in different. But anyway, Tana כדי ליתן על פי נקב קטן של יין, in order to put in a small hole on the barrel of wine. So it means that that ink in that hole, it's smaller than oil or honey. Devek, which is glue, כדי ליתן בראש השפשף. That נסרים, that the part that they put in order to glue the pieces together. So they said, Tanya, כדי ליתן בראש השפשף, שבראש קנה של ציידים. It was those who tried to hunt birds and other fly. So they put that little string, they put at the top a very heavy glue, And then when those flies come in, most probably they have some food that attract them. They come, they get attached, and they hooked to those spots, and there's a glue there, and you hold them. You see it nowadays a lot of time, the way that they cut mice and other, but that you cut them with that stuff. But here you're talking about fly or birds that up in the air. זפת וגופרית כדי לעשות בו נקב, which means those type of to make a hole. תנא כדי לעשות נקב קטן. It's enough to make a small one. חרסית כדי לעשות פיקור. That's the gold people that put together the pieces. לממר דרשוע דרבי יהודה נפיש, which means Rabbi Yehuda, it's bigger than the Tanakam, bigger than the first one. Hakai Melan, the Shua the Rabbanan fish, usually you go by the sages, so how come? That Nan, if someone take a gemi, you take a small one, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kedeleton Menu Minan Minat Kertan. If you take it in the even a small size of Min'al, which is much smaller than the sages, Eimar, Kedelasud Pitput Shel Kira Ktana. In order to fix even the small hole in those kira ktana, that is a heating system in ancient time that they use. So even to fix a small hole, he doesn't speak about building chatzuva. He's just speaking about fixing it. Subin kedeletet pikur zahav, and again this is in parentheses. Some say that it's part of that. Some say that it's not. So depend how you take it. Now we just turn the page, ATB. תנו רבנן, מוציא שיער כדי לגבל בו את הטיט, לעשות על פיקור של צורפי זהב. So we now just turn the pages, ATB. If someone carry a hair, that basically those part of teeth is improved. You need a quarter of water, and you put it together, and you make it as a whole. Shel tzorfei zahav, those people who put together the gold part, they use those pieces to hold them together. So they said here, Tosfot have a different interpretation, I'm just going by Rashi. So they said, כדי לעשות פיקור של צורפי זהב. So that's the amount that mechayev, that they're holding. Sid כדי לסוח. So now we elaborate and we said, what does that mean, sid? They're using usually for cosmetic purposes. Tana, כדי לעשות אצבע קטנה שבבנות, which means time for the girls to reach age of שידוכים, so they used to beautify them in a certain way. So that's the idea. But they said here, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, why did we mention this? Said בנות ישראל שהגיעו לפרקם, when it was a time that they Pirkan, meaning they reach an age of maturity. So basically talk about having two hair, either two hairs, or they have veloi gula shanim, they didn't reach the maturity of age. So in other words, it's happened that occurred to them premature, and they, in a sense, the Meforshim said that they are embarrassed by that, so usually they want to take it out. So there's a difference. Not anim to float otam beseed. Poor families, girls that come from poor families, use seed in order to remove them. Not ashirim to float otam besoil, but the rich used to have it's like a brand or something more expensive, that it's a softened, and it's much easier to process. It's not involved with any type of pain. But those who come from the house of kings, they use the shemen amor, the oil of mor. Shenemar, it said it in the book of Esther, chapter 2, when they prepare those girls to see the king of Achashverosh, they said they use 6 months in shemen amor, which most probably it's a very expensive oil, but it's a pain-free for them to pull out those hairs. Ma'u shemen amor, Rabbi Yochanan ben Chamar, stevat. So they now ask, what is the shemen amor? So they said it's like, since they use the shemen amishcha, Rabbi Yochanan said, they use the word mardero in the Exodus Shmol Tlamed. So it means that is this type of expensive oil. Is another opinion. Rav Yirmiyah bar Rabba amar shemen zayit shelo yavia shlish. Here we speak about quality of olive oil, that you take it from the trees, from those olives, that reach not fully age of full maturity. It's like 1/3 of their process of being ready. You pull it out of the tree and you squeeze them, and that's basically the olive oil that used. Tana Rabbi Omer anpiknon. That was the shemen that used for the korban mincha. And it means shemen zayit shelo yavi ashli is the same. It's applied to olive oil that they reach 1/3 of its time of being ready. So how come the daughter of king used this type of oil? So they said, so they have two advantages. One, it's taking out the hair, and the second one is soften the skin. So it means that they make it more softened, more quality. So those daughter of kings in that level, most probably very expensive oil, use those oil. In regard to that, is an interesting story. Rav Bibi Havile Barta. Rav Bibi was one of the sages, and he has a daughter. Assume, according again to the Mefarshim, Ben Chanel and others, said that she reached the age of matchmaking, Shiduchim, and he has some issue with that, so he tried to beautify her. Tafla ever, he took this type of seed and he put it around her face, but he did it in her body, in her face, step by step, and some said even not just the face, but other part of the body, but it make it reddish, it make it, in a sense, carry like blood vessels and show a better beauty of her. V'shakal ba400 zuzei. So the rabbi said that it means that they get, when it's come to final shidduch, the people paid, or people basically make it for a very large sum amount, which is 400 zuz in those days. So either there's some sort of nu lamamon, that's what she gets in the dunya, or he gets, but anyway, in our simple language, sorry to use that language, but it's like upgrading her qualification, external qualities. So it was Havad Bei Nachri B'Shiva Butei. So he has a neighbor, a non-Jewish neighbor, that tried to follow up. You know the story of monkey, there's monkey, that follows somebody. Havad Breita, that non-Jewish neighbor has a daughter, and he figured out, since Rav Bibi made his daughter so beautiful, should I do the same for her? Tafla bechad zimna. So instead of doing it in stages, he did it one time around her body, umeta, and that daughter passed. Amar, that non-Jew said, Katal Rav Bibi lebartei. Rav Bibi caused the death of my daughter. For sure, it's the body temperature, and the minute the body temperature is getting something overwhelming, it causes a reaction, and this is serious. And done by non-professional, and done in an impetuous way, without guidance. So that's what happened. And now we said, Rav Nachman Amar Rav Nachman, Rav Bibi Deshade Shikra Bayan Nate Tifla, Anan Lot Shikra Bayan Natan Tifla. He said because of Bibi get used to drinking wine, so he said that's carry must either by a way of the genetic manner or because they are drinking. But anyway, he says that carries special darkness either around the eyes or around the face, etc. So that's what they need. But we are not get used to drink a lot, so we don't need to go through that process. Either Rashi said that was his manners or something that, again, it's a genetic. The end of the Mishnah was said as follows: Rabbi Yehuda Omer kedei lasud kilkul. Someone who carries seed is in a measure of kilkul. So we said, my kilkul, my amdipi. What does that mean, kilkul, and what does that mean, amdipi? Amarav tzid'ah or bat tzid'ah. Kilkul is considered tzed'ah. It's in order to beautify the hair, and if it's bat tzid'ah, it's the place of face under that. So in other words, sometimes when you go to those small cosmetic surgeries, they will tell you, we have several doctors in my shul, so they can tell you cosmetic surgeons. So they tell you that there is a different quality and different price accordingly. There are some that goes with, in our language, like laser, or go under the skin, go the second level, third level to cut off the roots, and they are just do temporarily under the surface to do just for certain occasions. So that's the difference between Andipi and Tzida or Bat Tzida, so it's much deeper. Lememra de Shua de Rabbi Yehuda Nafish. So we say that the shiur, the measurement of Rabbi Yehuda is bigger or larger than Rabbi Nechemia. Usually you say that the sages who disagree with Rabbi Yehuda in regards to carrying Shabbat, they hold that it's much larger than what Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda it's much more machmir, it's more stringent in the measurement of Shabbat. They live in the same generation. So the Gemara responds and it said, Zuta merabanan. The measurement of Rabbi Yehuda, it's really smaller than one of the sages. That's Lasud Kilkul. It's smaller than small etzba, small finger of the daughter, the one of the daughter. But it's bigger than Rabbi Nechemia. So in other words, it's bigger than Nechemia, but it's smaller than the Rabbanan. I'm speaking about really dry seed but you take it and combine it with a large amount of water, so that's basically making cool, that's making that type of cosmetic needs, and therefore it's chayav, it's liable. You speak about the egg that they use basically to do andifi, which is a little deeper. If you go to the other stage, that it's really tzida and batzida, that it used tremendous amount of water, and then it helps to do hair removal in a relatively quick way. So it means now we will rather ask a question: is that andifi? It's not really batzida; it's something else. It's not the way that you defined it earlier. That's applied to a vessel that made out of clay that has two holes, one at the top and one at the bottom. And when you want to fill it, you close with this seed on the very bottom of that clay, and the measurement is in order to the measure of the hotzah of the shiur. It's they close that hole. So the Gemara rejected it and said, "Matkif la Rav Kahana." Rav Kahana strongly opposed it and he said, "V'chi adam oseh ma'otav an parot." That you're going to tell me that the person filled up his barrel of wine that they close on the bottom with seed, because guess what's going to happen to the wine? It's all going to spoil, and it's not just that, it's going to cause this seed on the bottom to be open, and then all the wine is going out. So why a person will do that? And Amarav Kahana shnatot, that's something else. It's applied to olives that's coming out of those clay vessels that it's in distance from one another. So in order to appoint the amount that inside that, for example, log or 2 login, etc. So so they put seed inside in order to make it more recognizable. So that's the example. We said in Menachot 87, Shnatot Ayubahim. That's the time of the holy Beit HaMikdash, holy temple, that soon will be rebuilt. So they used to measurement those amount of nesachim that come together with the offering of korbanot, ad kan, until 3 lugim, chatziayin, lepar, as we said it in those for the bulls. Ad kan le'ayil, here for the ram, but ad kan le'keves, this is for the goat. So it was a different nesach that come for next offering of the kvasim. V'baitem amayim, dipa aputa. So it's another one, it's a place on the forehead that you don't have any seed. So in conjunction to that, there is a fascinating story. Now we're going to speak about something that that a person entered the domain that not supposed to, and that's caused a destruction. So it was somebody from Galilee that came to Babylon. It was one of the sages. He came there, so the story of the chariot is in Ezekiel. They said that that's one of those esoteric parts of the Bible that's not supposed to deliver to the masses. It's like you see nowadays those Kabbalah for masses, and we all object in this type of behavior. So here we're speaking about someone who tried to publicize those things. I'm going to share with you this confidential, Kabbalah information to public, the word that Rabbi Nechemia taught, and he planned to speak it in the public. So when he was about to do it, V'nafkar ita, it came out a large, either you call it bee or you call one of those dangerous bugs, and they came out of the hole, they came out to his forehead and they killed him. It's a very famous GEMARA that said in Chagiga 14 about 4 people that tried to enter that domain, and only one of them survived, which means that there are certain information you don't share with public. So they said here, in delay that delay. In other words, he gets his own punishment, he creates his own punishment for doing such a thing, which is to try to promulgate something that it has to be shared only for in private and not for public domain. The Mishna said in Chagiga 11, "En dorshim b'ma'aseh merkava," we shall not share with public the deep explanation of the chariot and all this vision of Ezekiel, only for someone who is absolutely erudite, etc. So for sure it's not for the masses. Mishnah. Now we're going to a different shiurim, a different measurement for carry on Shabbat. Adama, which means that this type of sand that made red, that usually they use it in those days for using for stamps. Kechotem amarzufim. So it's like when you put those bags and you need to seal them and put the stamps, that's the Divrei Rabbi Akiva. That's what the opinion for Rabbi Akiva, that's the purpose of that. So either they use it when they make those big sheeps, the Rashi said, or the Rambam said that those merchants that used to do it for their bags, large bags that they transmitted from one location. The Chachamim disagree. And he said, Kechotama igrot, that someone sent a letter and he signed. That's the way that put a special, like a notarized signature. That's what they said. Next, Zevel v'choladak, some type of tiny sand, כדי לזבל כלח של כרוב דברי רבי עקיבא. In order to put one cabbage, that's the word of רבי עקיבא, החכמים אומרים כדי לזבל קרישה. Amim said that that's the measurement in order to put kaplut. חול הגס, כדי לתת המלוא כפסיד. Again, that's a little heavy sand. קנה, כדי לעשות ממנו קולמוס. This in order to make those קולמוס for the scribe to write. ואם היה עבר מרוסס, it means that it wasn't really ready to write scribe for use for parchment. So the measurement is in order to use it, just those sticks to make a fire, כדי שיוכל לבשל בו ביצה קלה של הביצים, in order to heat even a small egg of those eggs. תרופה ונתונה באילפס. It's like you're making scrambled egg on the pot. That's basically the measurement. So now the GEMARA go and elaborate on that, and soon you see the connection to this eve, special eve of Tisha B'Av here in Jerusalem. There's a special feeling. They said here, לא כף הסיד, תניא, כדי לתן כרפי כף של סיידין. Those people who use in order to, it's like painters and people like that, they use that, they combine the materials. Mantal dechol mal seed, who said that sand use it? That they combine to and nowadays, since it was a time of the special decree, it's a result of Polmus Shel Titus. That's a famous Mishna in Sota 49 that said that after Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, they put, it was a very special decree that said that everyone should do something in order to commemorate the Beit HaMikdash. So one of the things is, you shouldn't paint your home in a very high quality, you do some less quality, a little more darker, which means since you combine this type, you created a situation that those whitening, it's not bright, which again, it's act of commemoration of Beit HaMikdash. Rabbi Yehuda disagreed and he said, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Teven mutar, chol asur, mipnei shehu traksid. Again, it's a different level of painting, but the key is to get a feeling of the sadness of the destruction of Beit HaMikdash and not to have the full joy of living in a house. So in other words, always we have to remind ourselves that we're looking forward for rebuilding of Beit HaMikdash speedily and soon nowadays. Another explanation, Rav Amar afilu tema Rabbanan kilkulo zel tikuno. He says that by doing this type of action, it's basically that's part of preparations, because the minute he does that, he already liable for carry from one domain to another. Connected לעשות בו קולמוס, that's what we said in the Mishna, that use the stick to make it for writing a ספרי תורה. Tana, we said in תוספתא, קולמוס המגיע לקשרי אצבעותיו. This has to be some type of a stick that go to the nut of the fingers of the scribe. By Ravashi, קשר עליון או קשר תחתון. So it means that you use it for the bottom or the nut at the top of the hands of the scribe while he writes in it. So we said Teiko, we left here with a question mark, we're not sure, and let's conclude the sugya. Vimayave, the Mishnah said that if it's heavy, it's not thin, in other words, like a scrambled egg. So Tana Trufa b'shemen tuna b'ilfas, that it's combined with oil and it's make it quicker when you cook it. Amar lemar bered Ravina levrei, mishmelach beitza kalamai. How do you know that it's a light egg more than the other? Amar lei, the son said to his father, bi'ata de tziltzela. I heard about a light bird that carry those eggs, that they are very small and very lightened. It's the name Rashi said it's ta'atzil. It's one of those doves, or they said that it's a atzifi. It's another name of it's more in chulin, different eggs. But anyway, it's a very light one. Maitama. So what the reason that that you said that the lighted egg is the one that comes from those birds? Mishum de zutra, because it's very small. So you go the regular bird. Ishtik, so the son kept quiet. Amarle, so his father said, how do you know about what you heard? Amarle, the son said to his father, this is what said of Shesh in regard to lightning of the eggs. Beitzat tarnegolet, the egg that come out of the chicken. Why? Why the eggs that come out of the chicken call it a light egg? Shiaru chachamim, the sages put a measurement and they said, En lecha beitzah kala levashil u'tem beitzat tarnegolet. Is no other eggs that easy to cook more than the chicken eggs. So therefore, that's the one that we put the measurement according to that light egg. Or Mishna, why this halacha and Shabbat different than the other? Kol shiurei Shabbat. So it's like all these other melachot we spoke about, grinding, ktsira, tchina, carrying, etc. Why here is different? So he said, ki grogeret, that's a very small amount. It's a gogeret, it's like a dry fig, but the small one. V'hacha kebeitza, and here we take the measurement with the eggs. So he said, the father said, Amar le'achik amar Rav Nachman. The father said, that's what I heard from Rav Nachman. The reason is kegogeret mibeitza kala, which means the part of the chicken egg in the size of gogeret. So basically, you see here that it's is the same. You can compare the both. Most of the Rishonim has a question, the measurement of gogeret. What is the measurement of gogeret? There are some who hold that gogeret is one third of egg, and one said it's close to a half of egg. And I invite you to read in Practical Halacha Shulchan Aruch Shin Samechei 368. He elaborates on that and he brings a clear measurement of the gogeret that has those applications to our days.
Es Hashem